Progressive presents Forced Metaphors about bundling your home and auto.
In sports, 3 goals is a hat trick. And when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, you get a hat trick of great savings and round-the-clock protection. So you might be thinking, wait, that's 2 things. A hat trick is 3. But in this metaphor, great savings counts as 2 goals, and so does round-the-clock protection. So it's like 4 goals, and that's more than 3. It's basic math.
Forced Metaphors. Presented by Progressive. Bundle and protect today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discount not available in all states or situations.
A Jordan Communications station with locations in Noonan, Georgia, WQEE 99.1 FM, classic rock and sports. LaGrange, Georgia, and Lynette, Alabama's WBRQ 91.9 FM, gospel and blues. Lineville, Alabama's WZEV 90.5 FM, solid gold hits. Andalusia, Alabama's WDWZ 89.3 FM, big talk in Andalusia. Jordan Communication also owns and operates WQMK TV 18, home of retro TV classics, serving Opelika, Auburn, and Lynette, Alabama, West Point, Georgia. Coming soon, JC Sports Networks, home of Southern Sports, and in the near future, Rush TV Network, featuring action and horror classics on the internet and Ruco TV. Continue to tune in for more with Jordan Communications, your #1 local entertainment broadcast stations. WQE 99.1 FM Noonan, WBRQ LaGrange, WZEV 90.5 FM Lineville, JC Sports Networks.
Blue skies smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies.
Good morning. I'm Gail Nankervis. I'm the host of the Less Sucky Divorce radio show and the owner of Blue Skies Mediation in Peachtree City. I help people get a less sucky divorce. Not you, hopefully not you, but maybe your neighbor or friend or sister. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst and a licensed family mediator, and I use these skills with my clients to help them get a professional divorce without escalating fees and emotions. My goal is to help them get through the divorce process while retaining their sanity, their assets, and most importantly, their integrity. So the topic of divorce for a radio show might seem a little weird, but with more than 50% of marriages ending in divorce, I thought it was important to share information and resources with the community. Even though divorce is very common, people typically don't talk about it while they're going through it. You usually hear the nightmare stories at the end of it instead. So my goal is to change the way people in our community get divorced through educating them about different aspects, the process, the financial side, the emotional side, and everything in between. I'm excited to be here today, and we'll be right back with the Less Sucky Divorce radio show.
Taking your kids to their first baseball game. Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed. Get the latest info about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
I can do this.
We believe in you.
Each day brings hope.
Every day, millions of people celebrate their recovery from addiction and mental illness while others begin their journey. Be a part of it. Tell your story. Join the Voices for Recovery. Together, we are stronger. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral for mental or substance use disorders for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
The Lynette Spring Carnival is coming. Coming to Lynette Old Mill Parking Lot on April 12th through the 16th with rides, games, food, and fun for all. Open at 5 p.m. weekdays till 10 p.m. On weekends, open 2 p.m. till 11 p.m. Some of the featuring rides, the Sky Wheel, Seaway, and rides for the kiddie. The Spring Carnival will be located on Highway 29, the Old Mill Parking Lot in Lynette, Alabama. See you there.
Hey, you should move over. Red right return.
Right, red right return.
No, just red right return because
No, I'm saying red right return, but then right to agree.
Okay, but you're on the...
I should have said correct. I know it's red right return, but...
You're on the left and it's red right return. Red right return.
Tides can turn quick on the water. Progressive has you covered as a leader in boat insurance. Get a quote today at Progressive.com.
Oh, I was on the left. Right.
Please stop talking.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
First, they said cigarettes were safe. We know how that turned out. Now, they say they didn't market e-cigarettes to teens. Fact, more than 1 in 4 high school students are vaping, and 80% say their first e-cigarette was flavored. Vaping is harmful to developing brains. The reason we think vaping is safe? Marketing. Same lies, different day. Tell Big Vape to quit lying.
Good morning. We're back with the Less Sucky Divorce Radio Show, and today my guest is Paulette Rigo. She is the owner of Better Divorce Academy right here in Noonan. She's a certified divorce coach, and she, like me, is also a mediator. She's the author of Better Divorce Blueprint, and she has a new online course coming out called How to Divorce a Narcissist. Paulette is a very good friend of mine. We collaborate together, and she's even a mentor to me. I'm hoping she'll be a regular guest on the show because she's a fantastic local resource for divorce. So thanks for coming on the show today, Paulette.
Oh, thank you, Gail. It's an honor to have you. I'm so happy that you're doing this very needed show. Congratulations.
Thanks. Well, I couldn't think of a better person to be my first guest. What I'd like to talk about today is the different ways people can get divorced, because most people just know one thing. People who think about getting divorced always get the same 2 words of advice. Do you know what those 2 words are, Paulette?
Well, I can only imagine that it's something having to do with finding a lawyer.
Right. So that's usually the first thing people talk about. First of all, Paulette and I are not lawyers, but we both guide couples through the process of getting a professional divorce. We don't provide legal advice, so that's not on the show, but we will talk about some of the different options for getting divorced. But first, Paulette, I did give a brief introduction, but I know there's a lot about you I left out. Would you like to share a little bit about your business and how you got into this line of work?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Gail, I had 0 interest in doing this work. I was very happy doing my other career things, and we don't have enough time to get into my background with other things, but my personal experience propelled me into this work. 97% of divorces manage to stay on the trial. That's pretty good. Only 3% go to trial. And of the 3% that go to trial, 1% of those goes to the appellate court process. And you got it, unfortunately, that was me. So my case became pretty well known, and because of that, I'm the 1% that 99% of cases never experience. So because of that, many people reached out to me and said, I heard about your case, I read about your case, but the conversation would always end up being, can you help me? So eventually I, listened to a lot of stories and took notes and noticed some patterns, and then eventually called my attorney and said, should I go to law school? And he, being who he is, said, you'd be one hell of a litigator, Paulette. You think like a judge, act like an attorney, and feel like a therapist. I didn't know if I should, be insulted or honored, but it led me to found Better Divorce Academy, offer Better Divorce Blueprint, both as a credentialed mediator and a certified divorce coach, as well as a corporate HR divorce and mediation consultant. So I play a lot of different roles in this world. So my passion is to save an average of $50,000 in legal fees, about 8 to 24 months in court, and a lot of turmoil, emotional heartache, and bad decision making. So that's why I do what I do, and it's making a difference. And I know that the work you do too is being a mediator in the CDFA. It's a considerable responsibility, but man, the results are significantly better and different.
Absolutely. It's interesting because my divorce story is completely the opposite of yours. Yours went on for, what was it, 6.5 years?
It was 8.5 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, so mine was Wow, mine was actually, the reason I went into business helping people get divorced through mediation was because that's what I did in my own marriage. I had an angry husband who I knew if I poked the angry bear, he would try to pin me to the wall and want me to be homeless. And so I tiptoed through the process. I used my financial experience and background to provide us creative solutions. And then we used a mediator to get divorced. And it wasn't that bad. Now, it wasn't good, right? I can joke about having less sucky divorces, but they all suck. It's just a matter of what we can do to make them suck less. So when people give each other the advice to lawyer up, what's the next thing that happens? What's your take on that advice?
Well, there are many cases that do need to litigate. When I say many, I don't mean... I'm not going to give a percentage because much of that has to do with how long have you been married? Do you have minor children? Are there significant, assets or debt? And is this a case for alimony? And how much secrecy is there in the marriage? Are both parties aware of everything? Is it transparent? And are both parties willing to have that conversation where they're able to look at the big picture of everything and say, why don't we spare ourselves having to litigate and not go to court and not litigate the case?
Hey, Paulette, let me interrupt you for a quick... Paulette?
There are significant assets. They don't see eye to eye. There is secrecy. Perhaps there needs to be a business evaluation. And there may be some issues with addiction or abuse or the child custody and the parenting plan isn't so transparent. They've got some things they need to work out. So that's not the majority of the cases, Gail. Most cases are not that complicated. And when it comes down to it, it's just a spreadsheet of numbers and names and facts. And if you can keep the emotional bowl of oatmeal and the mess out of it, and you're able just to stick to those numbers, then most people, again, 97% of cases manage to stay on a trial, and probably more like 50 to 60% manage to stay out of a litigation in the sense that there are hearings and all the other things that I went through. So if that's the case, then you don't need to lawyer up and litigate. Do you need an attorney at some point to review the agreement? I always say yes, because it also holds up better in court when you do need to go back, or if you ever need to go back to modify something, or to make sure that it's enforceable. But you really don't need to run to an attorney immediately and drop that retainer down and then allow them to steer the ship of your case. It also prevents you from being in control of it because they really take over. And some people want that, but man, do you pay the price. The cost is exorbitant, and you spend so much time in and out of court, and it takes forever.
Right. So it's my experience, like you said, sometimes people just need the attorney. They need that for their protection, cases of abuse, for example, or hiding assets, where you really don't trust each other. But for the most part, most people just, they've done what they can to save the marriage. They've put in their time. They've gone to counseling. And now they're at their wits' end, and they just want it over with. But most people would rather send their own kids to college than a lawyer's children. Most people would rather have their own retirement plan than fund the lawyers. But once they get with the lawyer, they typically, like you said, lose that control. And the reason is because the lawyers are looking out for your client, right? It's their whole goal is to do the most possible to assure the best outcome possible, which then leads to an all or nothing approach. You get everything, and the other attorney says you get nothing, and then they fight till they meet in the middle. And like you said, the biggest problem with that is that the couple loses their autonomy, their own decision making, because the lawyers have kind of taken it over and taken it down this road of extremes. A lot of times they lose the ability to communicate at home even about issues that probably could be resolved without the escalation. So what is your process when you I know you integrate coaching into your business, and you're an excellent coach. When somebody wants to come up with an alternative for divorcing, what What is your process with them?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that, attorneys are counselors at law, and you wrap that up really well. But most of that depends on when people find me, when people come to me. And 70% of divorce is filed by women. That is a statistic, and it's national. It isn't just here in Newnan, it isn't just here in Georgia, and that is a fact. And 2 years is the average amount of time, and I mentioned the average amount of time that's 70%, and even the men, the 30% that are filed by men, they contemplate divorce before they tell anyone. So if you're in that early stage of thinking about it, batting it around, kind of thinking about it, right, stewing on it, like, can the marriage be saved? Like, how am I going to get through this? What am I going to do? How am I going to pay for it? What will the neighbors think? How do I mitigate this damage? And how do I start the process? How am I going to get through this? How do I overcome betrayal and surviving? The whole thing. There's so many questions that people ask themselves, as they should. But if they find me in that early stage of contemplation, that's where we can save the most heartache, the most money, and the most time. So they really are organized and researched and understood about all of the different aspects of what the divorce process may not look like. If they find me when the other parties may be served, or they're in the middle of it, whether they're litigating or mediating, there's usually some conflict, there's some emotions, and there's some problem or roadblock or boundary that's been crossed. And there are so many things for them to really manage and understand, particularly if they're dealing with a high conflict spouse. And that's usually when they find me. Difficult high conflict spouses don't stay quick, they don't play by the rules, they don't acknowledge fault, they don't take responsibility, they don't apologize, and they don't change. And divorce to those type of people, it's almost like a game. It's like this psychological, competitive game to them, like warfare. And divorce intensifies their behavior. Now, if you don't have that kind of stuff, that's amazing. But if you do, you're nodding your head and going, yep, exactly. So that's when you really need a coach, an expert that's been there, that can walk through the trenches, not only personally, but professionally, with hundreds and thousands of couples and over the many years I've been doing this, to be able to make sure that you know what to say, how to effectively communicate, to shut down the tactics and habits and tools that they use to really make you feel like you're crazy, which also makes the divorce longer. So if they find me after divorce, which is sometimes the hardest stage for many people, they don't know if they should change their name. Dating is an incredibly overwhelming thought again. How to deal with co-parenting, or shall we say parallel parenting, or counter-parenting in some cases. It's very difficult to do all of those things. If you're not healed, you haven't learned your lessons, you don't want to end up in another relationship that's not healthy or dysfunctional, you really want to have the strategies and tactics and suggestions that you can use to prevail, because it takes persistence and perseverance to get through it. So rebuilding your life on the other end has a lot to do with it too. It's beautiful on the other side, but you're going to get there.
Yeah, well, I know I have actually worked with you through some of your coaching, and so I know how good you are at that. What I really want to come back to right now is just the different ways that people can get divorced, right? Because I started off asking you about the lawyer up question, and that really is the first thing people know, and then they plop down their $5,000 retainer, and then it goes down one track. What are some of the other tracks that people can go down instead of just lawyering up?
Sure. Well, there are basically 5 major categories or methods of how you can divorce. And from the easiest to the most complicated, they are DIY, they are mediation, and there's a couple forms of mediation, but overall the mediated model. Then there's collaborative law, or the collaborative process, and that could be with a team or a collaborative decision between attorneys. Now, there's also arbitration, and lastly, litigation. And they all have their advantages, they all have their reasons for existing, they all have their timeline, their cost, their success rates, their process, their experience, and they all pretty much controlling the conversation in the sense of, well, yes, there's a protocol, there's paperwork and filing fees, and there's a domestic relations financial affidavit, and there are, guidelines that you have to follow, and each one serves a purpose. DIY is usually for people in short-term marriages, you don't have children, and there's not a lot of assets. Mediation usually is a series of meetings based on how complicated the case is, and there's some preliminary goal setting and fact-finding and fact-gathering sessions. But then it's a matter of walking through the categories of legal and physical custody, child support, division of marital assets and debt, and spousal support, and each category, and ironing it out so that you can come, both parties, to the table as a neutral party to facilitate an outcome that really is in the best interest of both parties, long-term and short-term. So it isn't just, hey, this looks good today, but what's going to really stand the test of time, and is it enforceable in court so that when it does in fact get to the court, that it will be admissible and acceptable to a judge to sign off on. Collaborative law can be complicated, and there's two sides, and usually there's a team approach. The advantage is, well, you're not litigating, it's still private, it's a little more affordable, but if it doesn't work out, both parties or one party pulls out, it's starting all over again. You can't use either of those attorneys, and predominantly everything is just erased, and you've got to start over. Arbitration is typically used for celebrities or politicians or people that have a public persona and want to keep everything under the radar. Everything is completely private, although that model is taken from the business world of arbitration. Many things are arbitrated in the business world. But if one person makes the decision, there's a lot of preparation. You don't know exactly how long it will take. And the decision is binding, and it's not appealable. And while litigation is that a situation where you need to have a third party, a judge, make the decision for you, where you are actually coming to an agreement. But it really is now a sense of how do we interpret the law so that it is according to the statutes of the law, and the judge is typically the one that makes the decision.
Wow, thank you. That was a great delineation of different options. I want to talk just a little bit more about the collaborative team. I've been on a collaborative team, and what that typically is, you touched on you'll have your lawyer, you may add counselors, you may have financial advisors, career transition professionals on the team, basically everything you need to get you through the divorce. And the pro of that, in my opinion, is that you've got the expertise guiding you along. One of the downsides is you have to pay all of those people. But fewer things are left to question. In my experience, divorce is it's an emotional issue first, it's a financial, and it's legal. And so when people go strictly to the lawyers, you're focusing on the legal. But when you've got the emotional and the financial tied in like you do on a collaborative team, that helps you make better decisions and helps you separate some of the emotion from the business decisions, which the finances part of getting divorced is a business decision. But most people approach it emotionally because they're in the throes of it and things have escalated. So have you worked on collaborative teams before? Or do you have any experience, positive or negative, in that regard?
I have been on a few collaborative teams. There are many different approaches to collaborative in family law. Sometimes it's really a firm, like the firm is a collaborative law, family law team, and when a couple comes to them, some of them are branded, there are some out there called WeWorks, and not to go into brands, but there are brands out there. So you come as a couple, you predominantly pay a flat rate for the entire process, although sometimes there are going to be add-ons if it takes longer or you run into needing some specialists that are not on the team, such as a business evaluator or a guardian ad litem or even a private investigator. You don't always know exactly every person that you may need on that team, but you're always going to have two attorneys, and again, that's a flat rate, but you're paying for both attorneys. And you're always going to have some sort of financial, a CDFA or a fiduciary. You're always going to have somebody there that's in the mental health or the wellness part of it so that they're able to deal with the emotional aspects of it. And then there might be some other people there for insurance or taxes, preparing things parenting expert. There could also be an insurance person or, every case is going to be different, but it is more of a team approach. Coaches in the collaborative world typically are like the cheerleaders. We're like the quarterbacks. We keep all of the members, of the team organized and communicating with one another, trying to keep the team a well-oiled machine. And there's a lot of personalities to deal with, too, and you've also got to match the personalities of both spouses with each member on the team, and that's really challenging. So I'm not a huge fan of collaborative process. When it's successful and you find the right match and the right team for the right couple, it usually is quite successful. It's not always less expensive. So it's kind of a little bit of a Russian roulette. No, maybe not Russian roulette, but it's like poker. You don't know the hand you're going to get, right? It's a little bit of a spin of the wheel. And if there is somebody on the team that you're not wild about, you absolutely could say to your team coordinator or your coach, gee, I'm really not happy with so-and-so. Would it be possible to change that person? You don't always have to throw out the whole team. It could be just one element of it. Now, of course, your spouse may say, well, whoa, I really like that person. I want them to stay on the team. And you can see somehow that could cause some conflict.
Right. Well, let's talk about the one thing that we both are wild about, and that is mediation. The one thing, whenever you talk to people who have gotten divorced, everybody always says, oh yeah, I used a mediator, but they're using that term in a different context. When people go through the traditional process of having lawyers, before they go in front of the judge, they have to go in front of a mediator. So at that time, you typically will have a mediator in the room with the two lawyers and the two clients, and you're mediating that way. But you've already been through a lot of the process with the lawyers, with the all or nothing approach, and now you're together in the room with the mediator. The way I know you do that, I don't prefer to mediate with attorneys. I prefer to mediate directly with the couple themselves and skip the attorneys entirely. Again, I don't provide legal advice, so there are times where I definitely refer out and, as you said, have the paperwork reviewed. But the way I like to approach it is consulting with the couple, finding out what their special concerns are, their hopes, dreams, goals, what they want to get out of the divorce, what's the most important point as far as parenting, as far as the finances. And then I put together a financial analysis for them with a recommendation. And it's something that it's both in everybody's best interest based on what they said, and then we mediate from there. So I don't even go into the courtroom or in with lawyers. I know you do, but tell me a little bit about mediation. We have about 2 minutes left, but if you want to share with me your thoughts about that process or my process or how you like to do it.
Well, the beautiful thing about mediation, Gail, is that it's highly personalized. It's very one-on-one and very individualized. Mediation is a neutral process where both parties are in control of the outcome and they get to steer the boat. The mediator is a facilitator of the process that allows each party to express their needs, their desires, their goals, and ultimately what they're looking to achieve. Both parties need to be in a state of good faith negotiation, though, because they need to be transparent and willing to come to the table. They also have to be able to make decisions without saying, oh, I can't make a decision without speaking to so-and-so. And that's why having somebody there to, as counsel, can expedite the process, because they no longer can use that as an excuse of, I can't make a decision because I need to speak to counsel. But the parties do reserve the right to continue, if it does come to an impasse. But, 70 to 80% of mediation cases are successful. But what I love about it is it's private, it's confidential, it's controlled by the parties, not the lawyers or the court. The parties are bound to confidentiality, and each mediator has their own style and demeanor. But there is a strict code of ethics and requirements and impartiality and confidentiality that needs to be adhered to. So it is flexible, it is malleable, and it decreases tension when both parties do feel heard and validated and their needs are taken into consideration. Now, divorce is 50-50, as they say. Marriage is 100%, and nobody gets 100% of coaching people. Now, if I'm coaching, I don't mediate the case typically. I know too much about it. I can do some preliminary fact gathering. That doesn't disqualify me from being neutral. But if I'm really working with somebody for a long period of time, I coach them and I work with another mediator to make sure that they, in fact, are the right mediator for the right case. And it's just a healthier situation, and they get
You're absolutely right. It is. The feedback I've gotten from mediation was, thank you for providing a safe space to have closure. And I thought that was a really neat way to approach the end of a marriage. So we're out of time right now, Paulette, but I know you've got a wealth of information. I hope you'll come and talk to us about your coaching in the future, about your upcoming class and your book. Would you like to leave your contact information right now?
I would be happy to. I'm so easy to find. It's betterdivorceacademy.com, and my book is Better Divorce Blueprint. It's all over the place and easy to find on Amazon, of course. So it's such a pleasure, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the Less Sucky Divorce Radio Show. I'd like to take questions for the next show. If anybody has anything they'd like me to address on the next show, I'd like to have a little segment where I'm answering questions from the community. So you can find me on my Facebook page, which is Blue Skies Mediation, or send an email to me, Gail, Gail, at lesssuckydivorce.com. And if you need Paulette's information from that, I think the lesssuckydivorce.com is probably easy to remember even if you're driving. So it's Gail at lesssuckydivorce.com. And if you need to get in touch with Paulette, I can also help you if you send me a message. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you next week, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright. Never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone.